Hey everybody, just a quick announcement that starting next episode, the podcast is going to launch a 10-part series titled The Rise and Fall of Kings. We are going to be looking at the stories of three kings in 2 Chronicles 24 to 26. This is King Joash, King Amaziah, and King Uzziah. I will post all the details in the episode description and on our Instagram so that you can read ahead if you'd like. But I wanted to give you a quick introduction to the series, and I'm going to start with a sports memory. It's September 15, 2008, Monday Night Football, and the Dallas Cowboys are playing the Philadelphia Eagles. I remember this because this is the era of Cowboys, Terrell Owens. If you remember that, Brian Westbrook, who tortured me in fantasy football for years. But anyway, in the second quarter, Donovan McNabb takes the snap. He fakes the handoff, and he launches a beautiful bomb to the wide receiver. The ball flew 60 yards, and there was Deshaun Jackson at the end of it, who caught the ball, and there's nothing but green grass ahead. Jackson scores the touchdown. He does this little dance. The stadium explodes. The TV broadcast put 6 points on the scoreboard. Everyone on the Eagles side is cheering and dancing, and it's an incredible play. But then the Cowboys throw the challenge flag. And after review, the referee announces that the runner lost control of the football prior to going into the end zone. So no touchdown. And the replay clearly showed that Jackson had dropped the ball just before crossing the goal line, celebrating early and not finishing the play. And Deshaun Jackson still had a good stat line that night, 6 catches for 110 yards, but no one remembers that. And the Eagles lost that game, and that one play has become a part of NFL lore, kept on YouTube forever. It was the perfect start that ended in disappointment right at the finish line. That moment reminds me of the three kings that we will be studying. 1st and 2nd Chronicles was written to the people of Israel after their return from Babylonian exile. Originally one continuous book, it reviews and summarizes much of the Old Testament history that came before, especially the story of Israel's kings. And part of the goal was to remind God's people of their past so that they could learn from it as a nation that is rebuilding and returning to faithful living and worship. Some of the kings are remembered as good examples, leaders who followed God's covenantal commands and brought blessings to their people. Think of kings like David and Solomon and Hezekiah. Others are remembered as warnings. Corrupt leaders from beginning to end who abandoned God, embraced idolatry, and led the nation into ruin. Kings like Ahaz, and up north, King Ahab. But in 2 Chronicles 24, 25, and 26, we get a unique set of three kings who aren't necessarily the great kings, but aren't really the worst either. Joash, Amaziah, and Uzziah. Each of them began young, each had great potential, and they all rose as they followed God, who responds to their faithfulness. They all started great. Kind of like that Eagles play. The perfect start, everything lining up for victory. But in the end, all three stumbled right before the finish line. Each king forfeits their previous blessings from God, who also responded to their unfaithfulness. And each one's story ends in tragedy, not just with a falling out of favor with God, but with a brutal death. And as a result, the people and nation suffer. And their replays are famous too, not on YouTube, but in the scriptures. They were written as warnings then, and they are warnings still. And by examining their stories, we can learn and think a lot. So here's how the series is going to work. Each king is going to get 3 episodes. One on their rise, one on their fall, and one connecting their story to the New Testament. And in that last episode for each king, we're going to reflect on the only king who started perfectly and finished perfectly. King Jesus, because in this covenantal age, he is our ultimate example, so that we might, as 1 Peter chapter 2 says, follow in his steps, because we too are commanded to finish well. So, join the podcast starting next episode as we look at the rise and fall of kings. Check each episode description and our Instagram for details if you want to plan and read ahead. And as always, thank you for listening.